Hi, this is JilMac. I'm the instructor for the Community College of Vermont, and I'm going to be explaining HTML today. And specifically, we are going to be looking at our textbook, and this is for Web Development, CIS 1151. And when we go to our textbook, we really need to, when we're kind of learning about what does the HTML do, we really need to kind of look at the code and look at what the code does. And in order to do that kind of efficiently and really to do it from anywhere, your tablet or your phone whenever you have a minute, we're going to be going over Chapter 4, which is which we're doing for Assignment 2. And if we go to page 88 in our textbook, it's going to be talking about the file paragraphs. So let's just move this over a little bit so we can look at Chapter 4. And then let's look at our, what I've got listed for in Assignment 2. This is the way my directory is set up on my computer, that I have my website development class, and then I have it broken up into my 14 assignments. When I open Assignment 2, I'm going to see Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. I'm going to be looking at the code for Assignment 4's, or for Chapter 4, sorry. And I'll make this a little bit narrower. Kind of tuck it in here. Okay, so we're going to look at paragraphs. So we're looking for the file paragraph. Now in Chapter 3, I went through and added page 88 onto this, but now I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with the way the textbook has the file structure and how I know which one goes with which page in the book. I don't really need to do that anymore. You, of course, are welcome to do it as you're kind of looking at it. But on page 88 in my textbook, I wrote down that the file that this uses is paragraphs.html. So I'm going to edit this with my editor. Now, I may be saying Notepad++, but those of you with Macintoshes or may have chosen a different editor, use your editor. I'm using this one because it's got a nice clear background and nice clear fonts by default, so I like it a little bit better than Sublime Text, which I also have, but that defaults to a black background, and I don't think the text really shows up as well when I'm trying to do recordings. So here I have the text for this, and we can see that we have our opening HTML tag and our closing HTML tag down at the bottom on line 20, and that our header, we have our opening header and our closing header, and the title is paragraphs. And when we click on paragraphs to look at what this does, we see that our tab now has the name paragraphs. In H1, we're going to have Antoni, I guess I say it wrong. So this is an H1 tag. And then we just have our paragraphs. Many tourists are drawn. And we see this first paragraph, many tourists are drawn. And then we have the second paragraph, which gives us our line space. And this talks about Barcelona's celebrated 150th anniversary, and here it is. Then we go to our next line, which is an H2, and we have this. And then we have our paragraphs. And here we have where we span this La Casa. I think that's going to be coming up. They'll explain that in the textbook, what we're doing there. And then we have our third heading and also our paragraph here. So that's what it's showing us in that example on page 88. And as you look at the red, it's kind of explaining what's going on. So let's look at the next example. Here we are specifying line print on page 89. So let's look at that specify. And if we want to look at what the code does, we can file open. And we can open the specify. And we can always go back and kind of look and see specify fine print and look for that file specify fine print. Down at the bottom, specify fine print, and let's edit that. I'm going to open it with my editor. Okay, there it is. Specify fine print. Got so many windows open. It's easy to do. So here we have got our title specify fine print, and when we click that and look at it, our tab is specify fine print. And then in the body, so we have our, so in our body we have our opening body tag and ending body tag. So this information is going to show up in the body of this, and it does. We have our first paragraph about ordering now, and we have told it that the some restrictions apply needs to be in a smaller font. We've also started to incorporate our footers so that our web pages have our copyright 2013 on them. And so this is just a very simple one, but it's showing us how to specify fine print. So we're going to go into emphasize text. I think we've done that, but you can just click on it and see, yes, now we have our italicize, which is the EM tag, which we looked at previously. And here, creating a figure. So now all of a sudden, in creating a figure, and let me open this one, file, open, creating a figure, this one, let's open that one. We are pulling in an image. So here in the body section, we have an article. So we can break this up into different articles, and it's so that you can have H1s in each article instead of having just one H1. You have a little bit more play with your headings. And then you have your paragraph, and you can just put information in there. And then we're starting to see a figure tag. And the figure tag allows us to have a figure caption. And that caption is going to be in bold for figure 3. And then it's going to say breakdown by industry, which it does. So you have a little bit more formatting in here. You're going to see that it's pulling in an image. And that image is found in the subdirectory img. And that the image name is chart-revenue.png. It's important that when you're FTPing files to the server, you also FTP the whole image directory. If you don't, this image is not going to show. So when you're FTPing, don't forget to grab the image file, and that image file does get downloaded, and it is in Chapter 3. Here, when we're quoting, we have some interesting things, so you can kind of look at all of those different block quotes and how they're formatted. And specifying time. This goes into specifying time and different abbreviations. And I'm just realizing that there was one other thing that I wanted to go over in Chapter 3. And that was, let's look at this. Yeah, let's look at this one. This gives us a little bit more. Here we have, no, it's not that one. Let's try that. Okay, yes. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so you can see the whole web page. Notice how this web page has this background, this red background. If we look at this div with more styling, how does it get that red background? We're going to start to see that in CSS. You're starting to see a little bit of CSS now, but we're not going to be getting into CSS really bit by bit until we get to, I believe it's Chapter 8. Yeah, Chapter 7 is CSS. So some of these examples you may start to see a little bit of CSS, and let me just show you. Let's do File, Open. And here, when we're looking, just like we had an image directory in Chapter 4, we're also seeing a CSS subdirectory. And if you're wondering if you're uploading things to Chapter 4 and they are calling a CSS, it's because this figure-styled CSS file is in the CSS folder. So as you're FTPing things up, if it uses the CSS, you should upload that CSS folder along with it. And let's just look at some of these to see which one has some. Okay. So let's look at, because when we're in assignment 2, Chapter 4, when we're in Chapter 4, we have both an image directory that has this one chart, and we also have a CSS directory, which is figure styled. So figure style kind of gives us a hint that where we're going to start to see figure styling is in creating a figure. So here, our first one on page 92, creating a figure, is just pretty much plain kind of, showing you a figure. But when you look at the next one, creating a figure styled, and we look at this example, all of a sudden now we have our graphic, but our graphic has a background color, and our graphic, if you look at it really, really close, there's this darker gray line all around it. So we've styled how we're going to do that. So let's look at this styled one. So let's look at our code, and we're gonna scroll down. And what's the name of this one again? Let's just go to the end. There it is, creating a figure styled. So we're gonna go up a little bit more to creating a figure styled. And now let's look at this in our editor. And here's my editor. Now the big change between this and the previous example is that we are now linking to an external CSS file. That we now have another line in our header, and that's called link. And the link is looking for a style sheet, which is CSS, and it finds that file in the subdirectory CSS, and it is called figured styled CSS. So this example, in order to have this blue-gray background with a little darker gray border, we have to make sure that we FTP the subdirectory CSS and the figure styled. This style sheet is what makes this gray and blue. If anyone is adventurous enough that wants to edit the style sheet, edit, open, and I'm going to go into my CSS, and I'm going to go into the figure styled. This is the styling. Now the background is #EEE. And in order to understand the colors, just the border is #CCC. There's another website that's out on our class page. And let's open another tab, and we'll go out to JilMac.com. And from JilMac, we'll go to Workshops and Classes. And we're in our Web Development class, and we want to go down to Color and Layout. And when we go down to Color and Layout, I'm going to open this all the way so you can start to see it. We have all the colors which talk about, what does that color do for us. But then we have some different color software packages, and one of them is Color Schemer. And in Color Schemer, now ours is showing a shortcut where it's just EEE. But if we typed in EEE, EEE, and set that color, we would get this pale gray. Let's see if I can pull this out. So if you look at that pale gray color in hex, is the same color. If we looked at the next color, I'm going to make this narrower again. And I want to look at the next color, which is CCC. So let's go back to our color schemer. And in the hex, we put CCC, CCC, and then set that hex color. You're going to see that it's a little bit darker, and that this darker color is this. So if you wanted to play around and maybe find a dark brown, you could use this hex code. If you wanted to use a dark blue, you could use this hex code in the CSS for the before and after. We're going to be doing a lot more of this with the CSS, but anybody who wanted to kind of get a jump on it, I know you designers like all of this, and so I'll just give you a little heads up that it's there. You can modify the CSS, and it's a lot of fun. So that's how we kind of experiment with using our textbook to kind of understand what's going on with the different pieces of code, and then to be able to go into the code itself and kind of understand what it's doing, working with our textbook, because the textbook really gives you a blow-by-blow description of everything that's going on in each of these. So until next time, have a wonderful week. If you have any questions, give me a call, and thanks for tuning in.